Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Kaylani, and today I am joined by Andrea Shuman. She is the owner and founder of Microdrops, and we're going to dive in and learn a little bit more about her and her own personal story, as well as uncovering some of the mysteries and the benefits behind Microdrops. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea.
Thanks for having me, Kaylani. It's really nice to be here.
Yeah. I'd love to know a little bit more about your personal story before we get into Microdrops and what it is. So I'd love to know a little bit behind what started the inspiration and what your healing path kind of looked like, weaving along as you are an entrepreneur in this field. How did it all begin?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really long story because it feels like my whole life has sort of been leading to this particular place. You know, my dad is someone who's a chronic pain sufferer. My mom was on antidepressants for more than 30 years. So I was raised in a environment where a lot of pharmaceuticals were shifting and changing how people's personalities were, how they behaved, like how just feeling like the drugs themselves actually shift very core people in my life. And so, you know, with that, my dad was in chronic pain, is in chronic pain, still is in chronic pain. He has a condition and also had a really severe injury and got electrocuted at some point. He has a condition called compartment regional pain syndrome, which basically just puts him in terrible pain that doesn't make sense. His nervous system's all kind of wild and tangled up. So with that, like I became a massage therapist really young. So at 17, I went to massage school. I was the youngest student they'd ever had at the time. And then things just sort of built on that. It was like I was touching people, working with people, and of course they download their stories to you. I've been working on the same demographic the whole time, really. It was like middle-aged women have been coming to me since I was a child, you know, since I was 17-year-old, because there was like not just women, but like, you know, there's a kind of like a core demographic there who've been coming. I've been learning sort of like the layers of, you know, what it means to make it to midlife over time and like what that looks like for people, and just realizing that as a massage therapist my tools were somewhat limited. So I went to Ayurvedic school sometime later, way later, you know, all life happened in between and all stuff, you know, but I went to Ayurvedic school in 2007 and I studied. They had like a specialization in women's health. And so I got to study with some amazing like Ayurvedic gynecologists in Nepal, and just really wonderful background experiences. But with that, I started just seeing like decline in certain things that couldn't be managed. So it was like, you know, you can't cure certain things for people. You can't cure that they have a non-understanding partner, or that they have a job that they hate, or that they, you know, or that society is overall giving them expectations that are breaking their mental health. You know, there's certain things that you can't necessarily like, you know,
There's
herb.
no elixir for that.
Yeah, it's not a like specific answer.
Yeah.
And so like I just started like zooming out. So in every layer that I learned, I sort of zoomed out a little bit, and I zoomed out a little bit. And I, you know, owned an herbal apothecary, very into the herbs, very much. That's my art form that I really love and enjoy. You know, but in 2000, you know, 17 or so, I was, you know, some time into my second child, still had a baby nursing, and I hit my own wall.
Yeah.
So like wicked hit my own wall. Like my partner had been
The
working
lack
out
of sleep is
outside.
unreal. Yeah. Yeah. I feel you, mama.
Yeah, yeah, and I had weaning depression, and
Oh,
like, you know, it was just sneaky, you know, like you're
yeah.
ready for postpartum depression, you do the things that you need to do to hold that stuff up, but then like life happens and things are moving really fast, and even somebody who has a lot of tools like me, like I women's health, my specialty,
Mm.
right? But who cares? It doesn't matter when it's you that's dealing with
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you're the
Like,
patient, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I need someone else to give me perspective
yeah.
here.
Motherhood will hit you no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course I'll give you the long, this is a long story, but like this is really how it happened is that
Yeah.
like I hit that wall, and a friend of mine who happens to be a naturopath, who happens to be my personal physician and one of my friends, she said, "You have the answers here. You can formulate your way out of this." She's like, "I'm going to give you some things to help you now, but you can get yourself back, with your own
Mm.
tools." And so, between
Really
her
empowered you, it sounds.
and it's huge. She reminded me that I was in
Yeah.
charge of
Oh, and
myself.
how we can forget, right? How we can forget the who we really are, or in those moments when it's all so overwhelming.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. And it was like I needed someone to turn the light back on. And then, between the herbs that she recommended for me and the microdose that another person, just random person, had offered me, wasn't even very well done microdose. In fact, I think it was one that had kind of gone off. It was a little bit like a water extraction that had kind of gone off. So I took it. I thought it was, yeah, I didn't know there's anything wrong with it at the time until whatever. So I took this microdose, and even in the state that it was in, whatever that was, it pulled my head above water just a little
Yeah.
bit. And it was like just enough for me to be like, oh, oh, wait a minute. I'm in the water. I should probably like get out of the water. So with that,
Yeah.
that's really what started. And like I just started getting my percolations back, and started to try to formulate different things. And Microdrops was basically born at the tail end of another business that was not doing well. And it was just time to let it go. And so I let go of my first baby and I birthed my second.
Yeah. It does sound like a rebirth. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love, there's a few parts of your story. Actually, prior to becoming a mental health counselor, my goal had been, like when I was young in high school, to be a massage therapist. And my husband still says, you still would have made an excellent massage therapist. And I just think there's so much vulnerability in both of those professions. And, yeah, beautiful. I think it just speaks to like the safe space that you were able to provide. And I'm always promoting and trying to share with people that we are one organism. So our brain and our body are interconnected. And when you grow up with just that Western flavor of medicine, I think we forget that very simple thing. So you went into this with this really lovely holistic mindset and your own passion and the things that you'd noticed have worked for you.
For sure. And the herbs are actually in my family. And so like my mom being on antidepressants, like that was just sort of that was just, you just did what your doctor told you to
Yeah.
do, at the time. And so, but even so, my mom was the one who got me interested in herbs. Like we used herbs as kids. My grandmother smoked catnip when she was feeling nervous. Different like herbs that were really just grown everywhere around upstate New York. We used them growing
Mm.
up. So it definitely has felt like it's been in my soul the whole time. So I'm glad.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's a passing down. As you are building microdrops, there's a lot of different elixirs and products meant to help kind of help the microdose. You could phrase it better for me. Help me out, Andrea. Help people understand the products that you have.
Yeah, our first three formulas were, well, I asked myself the question, when people are microdosing for depression, anxiety, lack of creativity, no inspiration, any number of things, or spiritual practice, why are we asking one mushroom to do all of those things? Because directionally they're kind of different. So because Ayurveda is an energetic system, like we think of things directionally and elementally. And when you think of depression, this is something that you need to draw up, and you think of anxiety as something that needs to be drawn down. And when you have a lot of like intensity, it needs to be moved out. And when you're really scattered and everywhere and over here, you need to draw that energy in. And
Mm.
so those are all energetically different because herbs are classified energetically in all Eastern systems. It didn't make logical sense to me because the lens I have is the Ayurvedic lens. It didn't math to me that we were just using one mushroom for all of those things. Typically in Ayurveda, you don't give a specific one herb alone.
Hmm.
So unless you're doing, say, like a macro dose like that. So it's a macro dose, but when you bring it down to the micro level, it needs some support. So if my aim is to be less anxious and I just take the microdose, it's possible that I could get more anxious. That it
Right.
happens to some people. So with that, I decided to create formulas that were balancing according to the Ayurvedic system. And, it's not on my packaging. I don't specifically say like this is a Vata balancing formula or anything like that. But that was the inspiration behind them. Creating a line that was for taking the body down. So it has a lot of roots in it and warming spices and things that, ground you to the ground and stabilize your nervous system. And then for those folks who are like, irritable and scattered and, super stressed, well, they needed a bit more of a cooling profile, like less heat in what we were giving them. So mind cooling, anger easing herbs like Brahmi or Gotu Kola, things like that. So I created a three-pronged system because we kind of seasonally change. We change in the
Yeah.
seasons of our lives. We change throughout the day. And so, I ultimately created formulas that can be sort of like use the one you need when you need it, and you're still getting this base of herbs no
Yeah.
matter which one you choose. That are all sort of mentally.
Yeah. I love we're talking about like the ebb and flow of life and really like accepting that we're a part of nature. And then you have this like aurora borealis behind you doing kind of the same thing.
Better than the drywall behind me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But if you're just listening, it's just, the lovely Zoom background is just mesmerizing behind Andrea right now. And I love that it's so thoughtfully created. And I mean, hearing your explanation in more depth, there was just a lot of heart in wanting to help people and in recognizing that not everyone is the same and that sometimes I'm gonna feel different this month than I am this month. And accepting that and embracing it. Because, like you said, it's not like a one pill fits all
Well, no,
situation.
nothing is really.
Yeah.
It's like nothing is the one pill fits all. And so, like that, and even so, even with the mushrooms, just the simple respect, we're taught very strongly to respect the herbs and the plants they're using, not to overuse for no reason, not to, to use things in context. And so, like, if you can help this sacred mushroom work better by giving it support, why not give it support? Because at the end of the day, you're trying to give yourself support. It's sort of like, you're working out from that idea. My formula is supported, it's supporting me, I can support people around me, and then out from that. And that simple empowerment, that it's really like I wanted people to understand that they have the ability to work with their own bodies, with their own medicine, and it could be pleasurable. They could be putting this thing in their coffee and like enjoying their morning coffee and also
Very tasty.
chill. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we should give some people a little bit of education too. How would you explain to someone who has no idea what a microdose is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this definition can vary depending on the people that you talk to, and some are, more intense about that than others. I just consider it to be a very small dose of medicine, a very small dose of a medicine, enough to catalyze a reaction, but not to have a major effect. So a microdose, in fact, is something I would just call formulation. So we wouldn't call it a microdose. I have kava kava in my formula, but it's technically a microdose of kava kava in one of my formulas, right? Because a regular dose of kava kava is like a whole cup, but many things, whether they're a micro or macro, in this case, a micro really means that it's a tiny little bit that needs to come into the body, right? So with that said, what people think is a microdose of psilocybin, because microdose is used in the pharmaceutical industry. So
Yeah.
some people tell you in the psychedelic space, that we should really be that, call it like, psychedelic microdosing, and that's has a different definition than what it's in the pharmaceutical industry. So with psychedelic microdosing, this is like not enough to affect your day, meaning like you can do a spreadsheet, parent your children, drive your car, make a meal, talk to your neighbor. All those things are possible on a microdose. When we move them beyond that to what a lot of people are using, slightly higher than a microdose, I think, and for some of them where they really like to feel it for a little more sparkle, and that's really getting into different territory. But generally, a
Right.
microdose is something that can be integrated in your life. So, if you're doing it 3 or 4 times a week, you certainly don't want to be high while you're like trying to navigate your life, you know.
Right, right. And about how often should someone microdose psilocybin?
No more than 5 days a week, mainly because you'll build a tolerance over time. And so it's just about like the smallest effective dose that you can use. And so if you don't overuse the medicine, you don't need to use too much medicine. Also, from a cost perspective, it makes it less expensive. There's all kinds of practical reasons to keep that there. And it's also really important to have that kind of break between some of those days. Now, some people will have you do like several, like 4 or 5 days in a row and then take your break. It's not the way I like to do it, but I also don't believe that there is like people will tell you what they think the right way
Right,
to manage this,
right.
but like I don't I don't believe that we know that yet. I also
I
feel like
say
there's
the
probably
same.
like there's a lot of different people's reactions out there. So like yeah, you microdose a few times a week and then ideally you start being led by the body after a while. So you
Mhm.
might start on a really solid schedule of like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're microdosing. And then maybe after a few months, your body calls you to microdose some days and then just to stay away from it
Yeah.
for a long time, a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, anything like that, or that you call yourself back in when you feel like that medicine is calling you back. So ideally, you learn to work with the medicine over time, and it becomes less clinical and more intuitive.
Right. Well, and that just echoes so much of the advice that I've given people as well, that there are these schedules available, but that it's really a practice of tuning into yourself and finding your own intuition and learning how to listen to the cues your body is giving you. So those break days are opportunities for deeper reflection on how you might feel different. And that's so cool because there've been times where I've been microdosing and yeah, I just all of a sudden feel like I haven't been called to it. I didn't even notice that it's been, months or something. And I just wait to see if the curiosity lingers and that pull or that desire for whatever I might want, more creativity, more focus is there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's really beautiful. That at the end of the day, what we want to try to stop doing if we can is outsourcing our body's wisdom. So whenever we can, of course, we need to learn something new or taking it in with our intellect. But like once it's in there, just letting it be explored a
That's
little
so
bit.
beautiful. I love that. I'm going to steal that. Yeah, outsourcing our body's wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, exactly. Because I can't tell you how many times a day I hear, what is exactly the schedule I should be using? And, exactly how much should I take? And this is one medicine that kind of throws all that stuff on its head because it's not like body weight dependent. So it's not like, well, if you're 5 foot tall and 140 pounds, then you should, there's nothing like that. Sometimes a 6'4" man is massively affected by a gram and like a tiny little woman can take like 10 grams, like it really
Right.
not body weight dependent. So there's actually, it's a medicine that calls you to look inside because
Yeah.
much as we want the scientists to figure out the right way, oftentimes when they figure out the right way, what they do is cut out a large swath of important information because it
Mhm.
doesn't fit into the
Right.
things
Right.
themselves.
Yeah. And they're like, right, like the psychological barriers someone might have or other factors that we can't yet fully understand are not going to be something that comes out on, a blood test or anything that can be tracked in any way.
No, and I mean, I don't know. We could go into the weeds, but there's a lot around like, like what are you doing when you're microdosing and are you trying to like make this thing heal you
Yeah.
specifically? not that it can't do a lot of healing, but like,
Hmm.
or are you letting it open your mind
Yeah.
to see what it is that what are the other factors because that are
Right.
contributing to your life? Because like as I said earlier, nobody's going to heal your shitty job but you. You know,
Yeah.
nobody's going to divorce your mean husband but you. So it's like at the
No.
end of the
Yeah.
day, you know, like sometimes what happens when you microdose is that you get a lot of information, and some of that information is hard information.
Hmm. Yeah, I often describe to people it's an opportunity to open a door and see a new perspective. But it's only you can walk through that door and walk the path that's going to feel better for you. You could just as easily shut it very quickly. That's your free will.
Yeah, 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 like and I think the other part that is a little bit I think people should be aware of when they
Hmm.
start or in microdosing is that there's many reasons, you know, besides those circumstantial factors like, you know, particular relationships and blah, where you might have depression for reasons. Like there could be like a gluten allergy, you know, like you could be
Right. Oh,
celiac.
there's a combination.
Yeah,
There's like
really
a lot
good.
of physical ailments, yeah, that can lead
Any
to
number, I
depression.
mean, there's like a
Right.
wide variety or any number of autoimmune
Right.
diseases and
Thyroid issues, yeah.
yeah, like there's just so much out. There's so much, and so it like I try to get people to stop being like, what pill do I need to fix
Yeah.
my whole life? Because
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it's not serving anyone to pretend that that's how this works.
Right. I know. I think it's coming out of such like desperation and pain, and it's complicated. Being human is really complicated, guys. That's the short answer.
So much.
What are some of the benefits? We've kind of like scattered them about a little bit, but what are the benefits that you would share with the audience when it comes to microdosing psilocybin?
I think for me, the most potent piece is this pause that you get between
Mm.
stimulus and response. It's everything is in that like pause, you know, because what happens to us is that something, you know, something comes to us, some stimulation comes to us, some words or some, you know, circumstance or some offering that's in front of us. And then we have an emotional reaction, which is sort of cached by a physical reaction, because like all emotions are physical, right? The chemical movement in your body, you know, it's like there's chemicals involved in your
Hmm.
emotions. And there's a physical feeling that we're associating with this emotion, and it's all happening like at once. So the stimulus happens, and then this whole thing happens in your body, which means I'm mad, or it means I'm sad, or it means any of these things. But when you have the pause, you still might say the thing you were going to say. Like the kid comes in and is like, Mom, I hate dinner, I want a different dinner. And like maybe what you want to say is, I made you the dinner I made, and like, you know, and be a little bit like intense about it. And you might say it anyway, but then the body doesn't feel the thing that it was going to feel. And because it doesn't feel it right away, you get a chance to be like, oh, that was kind of a mad reaction. Like, did I need to say it that way?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
you
again,
could correct it and observe yourself a bit more.
yeah, I just feel like, you know, if you can't see the forest for the trees, I like to say that it
Yeah.
helps you become the sun a little bit so you can look down and see, like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. This is a well-worn pathway because it's helping you take different pathways around your brain is really what's happening. So you get a chance to look at yourself differently.
Yeah, beautiful. So really a tool to help us regulate our emotions, which is the underlying issue for so many things.
So many. I mean, for me, it definitely, like, you know, I definitely came from an emotionally unstable home. And like, so during the process of really microdosing and years of healing, obviously, but like through the process of microdosing, I was really able to more like get a hold of the, you know, the wave
Yeah.
is really what it
Yeah.
is. And just understanding I mean, I do human design as well, and you and I have talked about that. But and so we, you know, the emotional wave is something that's
Mhm.
very important part of human design. And so between, you know, microdosing and the study of human design, I really started to understand like, oh, well, what is this thing that we're going up and down?
Yeah. Such a, there's so many different paths, but this is such a beautiful and fun way for self-discovery, like the path that you chose.
Yeah, I didn't really have any other alternative. Very, very neurodivergent person, not terribly employable. So,
Yeah, same, same. What is your hope for the future of psychedelics? And yeah, maybe I'll just leave it at that. Not specifically microdosing, but if you have specific thoughts there, that'd be great. But there's been so much change, and you're a part of that change. What do you hope to see?
yeah, I think that's an important question. I hope to see a shift in the way we think about these medicines and how we think about our right to our consciousness. I'm hoping that I see in my lifetime a governmental understanding to the right to one's own consciousness and exploration. It feels like, a very important part of this whole story is not having to hide something you're doing. Like it's so discordant to
Yeah.
me that some of these activities are criminal. And because they're criminal and they carry these like weighty sentences for people. And at the same time, people are not doing this to like, they're not going out and like destroying their lives over mushrooms and that it's not really what's happening here. So my hope is that we change our values as a society, to understanding that all emotions are valuable and the exploration of one's consciousness is a human right.
Yeah. Oh, it was so well said. Thank you. Yeah. Our emotions are our guides, and I think we have been as a society so cut off. And um I'm hoping that I feel a collective cry towards change, and it feels good. I'm just also impatient.
I hear you. Well, I'm impatient, obviously, too. I'm saying, okay, well, this is the world we're in, so we just got to navigate the best we can in the circumstance we have.
Right, right. How long has microdrops been a thing? I forgot I didn't ask that specific question, so I'm kind of bouncing around. But what year did you start it?
We're 2.5 years in now. So we were a year. I remember we were a year at MAPS. So
Oh
June
wow.
of 2023 was like our 1 year anniversary. So that's when, we started, but I started the stuff for the company like several years before as I was trying to wind up another one. But we've been, yeah, established a couple of years, a couple and a half years, and it's been great, actually.
Yay, so exciting, wonderful. And let's see, what's next? What's next for Microdrops? Any new exciting projects or initiatives?
Yeah, so we are working on a few different things. Some are actually in person, kind of retreat style pieces, but also we have a community on Patreon, and in that community, I'm also gonna be offering more kind of other offerings in there as far as like, bringing in the path that I've done with human design to me is actually really important and potent because it was just as big of a part of a life shift for me as the microdosing. So we're going to be leaning a bit into that and into some live events that coordinate both of these practices. And because both of them are ultimately practices of deconditioning. And so we're going to spending some time first locally, and then hopefully we've got a couple international ones getting in the planning works.
Oh, how fun. Okay, very exciting. How can people learn more information about Microdrops and become more involved? Find your Patreon.
Yeah, so we're on socials at Microdrops. However, I'm very bad at social media. Full disclosure, I barely ever
Okay.
look into it, but feel free to follow us at Microdrops. That's with a Y. And then join us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/microverse, MYCROVERSE. And then you can just join us at microdrops.com, which is our retail site. And would love to, show you our herbal formulas, supportive, like functional mushrooms that we do. And our private community on Patreon is a whole nother realm and things that are offered to you there. So we'd love to see you in any part of that universe, microverse.
Yeah, Yeah, microverse. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll include all of those links in the description so that they're really easy for everyone to find. I'm happy to help in any understanding or guiding that anyone might have if you're interested in that. But your products are just so very high quality and where I try to send people who have questions or are wanting to learn more. So thank you so much. I appreciate the work you do and the thoughtful blends that you've created. It was just with such like high integrity and care for humanity. It's really lovely.
Much. I really appreciate that. And I forgot to say, you actually get $10 off on your first purchase if you use code Evolve10 at
Yeah.
checkout. So definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah, awesome. Check it out. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Check out Microdrops for sure, though. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Bye bye.